Megan, we are so glad to have you with us this morning. We are Sustainable Newton, and our goals are to really help Newton County with choices they make in terms of solutions and problems that that the community needs to solve, thinking about things like the social impacts, the economic impacts, and the environmental impacts. So sometimes we talk about people, planet, and profits, and really considering all of those as we do that. We try to bring awareness to the community. So here we're doing this webinar today, trying to bring awareness to what you do with the food pantry. Food is so essential. It is what sustains us as humans. The air we breathe, the water we drink, but the food is clearly one of those things that we have to survive. And so we appreciate all you do. And I've told many people that you are my hometown hero because of all the work that you did during the pandemic to keep all those people fed when people were at a crisis situation in their homes, trying to get enough food on the table, nutritious meals for their family. I just was able to see you firsthand as I worked a couple of days with you during that time at the food pantry. So I really appreciate it. So I wanted to ask you to sort of tell us a little bit about what the food pantry does. I know it's the First United Methodist Church Food Pantry. That's the official name, but we'll probably just refer to it as the food pantry. But tell us a little bit about what you've done and what you saw during the pandemic and then what you're seeing now in our community.
Thank you, Theodosia. I really appreciate the invitation today. And I also appreciate all the work that you and Billy have done to help with food insecurity here in Newton County. Y'all are great. We couldn't do it without wonderful volunteers like yourselves. We are the Covington First United Methodist Church Food Pantry. There are several other wonderful food pantries here in Newton County doing great work. We are just one of many. We are a partner agency of the Atlanta Community Food Bank. And so we operate under their kind of rules, but we also have a lot of benefits through them. We're able to purchase our food at a below market rate with the Atlanta Community Food Bank. We also have our enabled food program where we're able to get food from 6 different community grocery stores to distribute to the community. And we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. So just to let you know that we're not our own 501c3. We are a ministry of Covington First United Methodist Church, but we are very closely tied to the Atlanta Community Food Bank and other partners here in town. Prior to the pandemic, we were serving about 600 to 650 families each month just in Newton County. Once the pandemic hit, we realized that we needed to increase our days of availability for people to come to the food pantry. We needed to increase the amount of food that we were giving out because there was such an increased need. So we were actually able to renovate our building to give us some more space so that we could increase our capacity to provide food to the community. We also opened up our service area. So we not only serve Newton County, but we also serve surrounding counties. And we're especially attuned to the needs of our more rural neighbors who may not have quite as many resources as the counties closer to Atlanta do. So we're not just Newton County, we serve still primarily Newton County residents, but other county residents are more than welcome to come to us once a month. At the height of the pandemic during lockdown, when lots and lots of people were out of work, we served about 950 families each month.
Wow.
For that period of about March 2020 through about June, July 2020, we were serving that amount of people. We're not serving quite as many right now. We've leveled off at give or take 700 to 800 families a month. which is still higher than our pre-pandemic levels. So obviously there are folks who are still being affected economically by the pandemic, but also I think there were people who pre-pandemic really could use the help of the food pantry, but just didn't really think of themselves as in that great of need. And then when they really were in dire straits during the lockdown, they came to us and now they've realized what a resource we can be. Our goal is to say, if you didn't have to worry about food, what could your family do? If you come to us once a month and are able to get 100 pounds of groceries, could you take that money that you would be spending at the grocery store and put it towards something else? Could you pay for childcare so that you could go to work? Could you help provide transportation? Could you pay for medication or a doctor's visit? So we operate under this food first mentality of come to us first. Get the free food we can offer you first, and then see how that savings can help you in other parts of your life. I just want to stress, we could not do this work without the generous support of both our donors, our financial donors, as well as our volunteers. I'm the only paid staff at the food pantry right now. Everyone else is a volunteer.
And your volunteers have been great. I really enjoyed working and meeting a lot of new people. It was really a great opportunity. Megan, one of the things that we at Sustainable Newton are interested in and trying to support is this Drawdown Georgia. And Drawdown Georgia is the brainchild of the Ray C. Anderson Foundation, and they partnered with some of our higher ed institutions like the University of Georgia, Emory, Georgia Tech, Agnes Scott. So they used researchers at those institutions to look at solutions to bringing down carbon and greenhouse gases in Georgia. How could we do that easily? What are the low-hanging fruit for us to be able to do that? And they broke it down into 5 categories and have come up with about 20 solutions that we can really capitalize on. So you always think about solar panels, and renewable energy is one of those that's always great for our area. But they have a category on food and agriculture. So it turns out that, how we grow our food, where we get our food, where our food comes from, what we choose to eat, what we do with our food waste, all of these things impact our carbon footprint. And so our goal today was to really talk to you at the food pantry and say, how do you see the food pantry working with some of these individual issues? So like where we get the food, or how we work with diet and that sort of thing. So could you address one of those maybe, or do you want me to choose one for you?
I can address. We are so excited about Drawdown Georgia and really feel like the work of the food pantry is very much in line with those goals. So I mentioned the Enabled Food Program briefly. This is through the Atlanta Community Food Bank, and it's where we go out to grocery stores and get food from them that's donated to us. So it's at no cost to us. That is perfectly wonderful food to eat. It's just food that they're not going to be able to sell at the grocery store. So I always say, if you're at the grocery store picking out a package of chicken, and there's one package that says use or freeze by tomorrow, and one that says use or freeze by next week, most people are going to pick that use or freeze by next week packet of chicken, even though they're both perfectly fine. You can take that packet of chicken home, pop it in your freezer, 3 months later, still use it. So previously, grocery stores were disposing of this food. It was going to the landfill. And then the model changed to where grocery stores were giving the food to food banks. So for instance, like the food bank in Atlanta would send out big trucks to multiple grocery stores, pick up the food, take it back to Atlanta, and then distribute that food to small food pantries like ourselves. Then they realized that's not a very sustainable way for us to run this program. So the model shifted to providing food pantries with smaller refrigerated trucks. And then the food pantry could go directly to the neighborhood grocery store, pick up the food and bring it back. So there's less miles on the highway, smaller trucks picking up the food, and the food stays within the community. It's not traveling hundreds and hundreds of miles to get to people who are in need. So that's the model that we operate under right now. We have a 26-foot refrigerated box truck that we go twice a week to 6 different local grocery stores, and we pick up that food and bring it back and give that food out to our folks here in Newton and surrounding counties. We are getting, anywhere between, I would say, 2,000 to 5,000 pounds of food each day that we pick up. So that's food that's, again, not going to the landfill, that we're able to distribute that food to our families here in Newton County. And this includes meat, baked goods, dairy products. We do get some shelf-stable items, but mostly it's meat, dairy, and baked goods that we're able to use. So we're saving that food from the landfill, but we're also trying to cut that carbon footprint of not sending big trucks from Atlanta to get the food back to Atlanta and then back to us. So we're kind of streamlining that a little bit. And then along with that enabled program, it actually can lead to change of the individual stores. An example of this is probably 3 years ago, one of our grocery stores was giving us like 900 pounds of food twice a week. It was just huge amounts of food. And I was talking to the manager of that grocery store, and he was like, wait. We should not be losing that much food, because that's a cut to their profits. And so they actually changed their buying schedule so that they were bringing in less meat. And this was all meat. They were bringing in less meat from their distributors because they realized, we don't have to purchase this much meat because we're not selling it. So while on the one hand, I miss having all of that meat to give out to our families, it does show that when companies are made aware of the waste that they are participating in, they can change their decisions to be more sustainable. And so now, instead of 900 pounds twice a week, we're getting more like 300 pounds twice a week from this store.
Yeah, and Megan, the thing that always amazed me was the first time I realized how much food waste we actually have in the US. It's like almost a third of our food is wasted, whether it's not gotten out of the fields or whether it's, damaged on the distribution end or whether it's, outdated at the grocery store. It's amazing to kind of think about how much food waste there really is. It's unbelievable.
And we do try to educate the families that receive food from us on what does a use by, sell by, best by, what do those dates mean? We actually have a printout that we can provide people, which shows what does that actually mean. A lot of those dates, it doesn't mean you have to throw it away. You can still use it. Like with meat, it is important to freeze it by its freeze by date so that bacteria doesn't grow on the meat. But things like canned goods are fine years after their best by date. Milk can be used a week after its sell by date. I think cheese is like it's something like a month. I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah.
It's something like a month after its sell by date that you can use like cheese and sour cream and things like that. So we also do try to educate our families, families that really need to stretch that milk for
Yeah.
another week instead of throwing it away, that it's not going to harm you. It's not going to have negative effects on you to drink it a couple of days past its sell by date.
Yeah, I always think about when we go out of town with the boys when they were younger, particularly, but I still do it, is I would freeze the milk. And then when we got home, I'd pull it out, let it defrost, and we'd be using it. And the boys would look at the date and they'd go, Mom, this milk is outdated. We've got to throw it out. And I said, it's still good. We froze it for half of that time. So it is interesting what you can do when you think about it and make an effort. I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
One of the things that is also sort of a Drawdown Georgia thing, goal is to sort of think about the way we eat. And so, thinking about trying to move towards more plant material and less meat, because meat is the agriculture and the raising of livestock is such a big carbon footprint. Are there things that you all do at the food pantry that might help people kind of see how to do that?
Yes, we provide a lot of plant-based options for people. Specifically, we do have a lot of beans, dried beans and rice, canned beans as well, that we provide to people. A lot of through our enabled program with grocery stores, we're also getting the plant-based product that maybe hasn't quite caught on yet.
Yeah.
that we get a lot of that, and we're able to get that out to people. We have 2 programs that actually offer cooking classes to our households that often focus on plant-based meals. One is through the Atlanta Community Food Bank. Every Tuesday morning, I want to say it's either at 10 or 11 a.m. They do a Facebook Live cooking demonstration utilizing food that is available at food pantries that week. And most of the time they're doing a plant-based option. And it's just a quick little video of how you can prepare maybe some of the food that people may not be as familiar with.
Yeah.
Or there was a time a couple months ago where we were just inundated with beans. Lots and lots of beans, including garbanzo beans. And people may have not been as familiar with how to utilize garbanzo beans. And so they offered a cooking class on that. They offered a cooking class on butternut squash when it was in season and things like that, how to make a meal out of some of these ingredients and how to stretch that meal. We also have partnered with the health department to offer a cooking class in person to our families. We did have to pause that during COVID, but I'm happy to say that we're trying to schedule that for January to go back to in-person classes. This is a class that focuses on healthy eating. It focuses on stretching your dollar at the grocery store. And as we know, plant-based eating does both of those things. It's less expensive and it's healthier for us. And so they did this lovely chili that had lentils as its main protein source that they taught everyone how to make. So those cooking classes, again, they focused on plant-based options. The Atlanta Community Food Bank also offers recipe cards that we can give out to families to help them learn new recipes to use some of this food as well. We kind of, when we're distributing food to families, we're looking at meat more as like the side, the accompaniment to the food, whereas the fruits and vegetables, the carbs and the non-meat protein options are more the star of the show. And again, that's both because it's less expensive for our families, and then it's also a little healthier for them, since so many of our households that we serve have diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, A lot of our families have someone affected by cancer. And so we're trying to offer nutritious options, not just getting food out to them, but making sure it's a nutritious option for their family as well.
Yeah. One of the things I think about are, that a lot of times I would be a member of a CSA and I would get these things in my, local fresh food. And then I would go, okay, what do I do with this? And I'm Googling all over the place trying to figure out what to do with it. Are the classes that you do, are they taught right there then at the First United Methodist Church?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
that's great.
We do it in the fellowship hall. And we've offered several classes in the past. Depending on what time of day they are, we're able to offer, sometimes we were able to offer free childcare so that childcare wasn't a barrier.
Right.
We were able to offer small gas cards so that we don't want someone to say, I can't come to this class because I can't afford the gas to get there. So we'll offer a gas card to people who come. We just want to kind of take down some of those barriers for people to come. And we also schedule the classes on food pantry days so that once a month during the class time, they can go to class and then go to the food pantry at the same time. So they're not having to make a separate trip for that.
Yeah. And childcare, I always think about, you're a mom and you're trying to feed your family and you're trying to get this information, and childcare helps tremendously with anything you want to offer. It makes a big difference.
The first cooking class we actually offered was geared towards children and families. So we had kids as young as 8 years old in the class with their parents, learning knife skills, learning how to make sure that they're not, cross-contamination in the kitchen, learning safety things, but also I think it's pretty well known that if children help prepare a healthy meal, they're more likely to eat that healthy meal.
Oh, yeah. I always laugh and say my mom taught me how to cook by opening cans, and so I've had to learn a lot in my older age about how to cook a lot of this fresh stuff. What kind of fresh food do you get? Do you partner with any of the farms around, or how does that work? I know sometimes on Saturday you've distributed some fresh foods to the community. How is that program working?
So we have, it's called Mobile Food Pantry. We offer this usually once a month. We're actually having it this Saturday, the 13th, from 10 to 12. This is another opportunity for families to get food. It doesn't count as your once a month visit to the food pantry. And this is, we often get a whole pallet of sweet potatoes or a whole pallet of tomatoes or a whole pallet of strawberries. So this again is a way for the Atlanta Community Food Bank to help farmers and distributors who have this food that is not going to be sold at a grocery store or to a restaurant. Maybe we've got a case of tomatoes and one of the tomatoes is moldy, so they can't sell the case, but we can just throw out that moldy tomato, pop it in the compost, and use the rest of those tomatoes for our families. So that's once a month, and we offer fresh fruits and vegetables at that time. We have also partnered with the Oxford College Organic Farm in the past. Right now, they are helping out a food pantry in Oxford, but before that Oxford food pantry was up and running, they were sending food to us. So let's say someone didn't pick up their CSA box, they would let us have that CSA box. Or if they had an overabundance of peppers or an overabundance of beets or something like that, that they weren't able to sell at the farmer's market, we would get that. Going back to that enabled program model, sometimes it's also food that's, again, perfectly good to eat, but it might be a little blemished.
Yeah.
And even at the farmer's market, people don't want blemished food. And so the Oxford College Organic Farm would let us have that food. We also have gleaned the fields at the Oxford College Organic Farm. And gleaning is an ancient practice. Those of you who are familiar with the book of Ruth in the Bible, there's gleaning in that. This is where if I'm trying to think of the best way to explain it. So let's say the machines go through the field and they are looking for a sweet potato that's like this big, because that's how big our people in the grocery stores like their sweet potatoes. So sweet potatoes that are this big aren't going to be picked up by that machine, and they're left in the fields. So gleaning is when volunteers come in and pick up those sweet potatoes that the machines didn't pick up. Again, perfectly fantastic sweet potatoes to eat. They're just not going to be sold to the stores. Or the food around the edges of the field that doesn't get picked up by the machines, will glean that. Often with the Oxford College Organic Farm, it's more that they maybe have, instead of, a whole field of kale, they only have like 2 rows of kale that have kept on producing, but it's not enough for them to fill all of their CSA boxes, or some of the kale has some blemishes on it. We'll come in and glean that kale, maybe get a couple of bins worth that we can give to our families. The interesting thing about gleaning, and what I've learned over the past several years, is it's hard to schedule. So, in my world, we like to have schedules, and we like to have them as far in advance as possible. But often with gleaning, I'll get a call from someone, say with the Society of St. Andrew, which also does a lot of gleaning here in Georgia and around the country. And they'll say, we have peppers at the UGA farm in Watkinsville that need to get picked up tomorrow. Do you have 10 volunteers who can come tomorrow and glean peppers? Well, usually not. Usually it's hard to get people at the last minute. But if people have time on their hands and are interested in being like emergency gleaning volunteers who can be called on, we're always in need of that.
And Megan, Billy and I had the opportunity maybe 3 or 4 years ago to do some gleaning of the apple orchards in North Georgia. And we did it through the St. Andrews Society webpage and got involved with them. And that's a very rewarding experience. I mean, it was just neat to see how things grow and be in the fields, and then thinking that you were trying to prevent some of that waste from happening.
Exactly.
That was really felt pretty good. One of the things that Drawdown really thinks about with reducing waste is, so, and I do this at my house, if I've got something that I'm not going to be able to use because I've let it sit too long, or, food that we've eaten that has plant-based, I've got a great compost pile in my backyard, and I just junk cut in my compost pile. I'm not even trying to make soil. I'm just trying to avoid getting things into the landfill, because I know that's such a carbon footprint there in itself with all the methane and stuff that's made. Do y'all have any, do you do any kind of work with composting or educational opportunities for people with composting or any of that?
So a few years ago, we had the kind of the person at the Atlanta Community Food Bank who's over all of the community gardens. Came out and spoke to a group of the Newton County Young Farmers Association, as well as some other food pantry folks, about composting. And he kind of went over the very basics of backyard composting, but also got into more industrial composting that maybe some of our farmers here in town or in Newton County could participate in. We did have a compost bin at the food pantry for a little bit after that class. We followed his directions and made one because we do occasionally have food, as I said, at at the mobile food pantry that can't be used, or food that comes from the grocery stores to us that can't be used. We did have to stop that compost bin just because we didn't have volunteers to keep it up, keep up with it. It needed to be turned, it needed to be maintained a little bit more than we could. But that's definitely something that we're interested in moving forward, not only having a compost bin at the food pantry, but also teaching our households about composting and how they can compost in their backyards to reduce waste. So that's kind of we've done a little bit of it. We haven't done the best job, but it's something that we're very much interested in the future, definitely.
Well, and I remember when I was working one day, I took some stuff home for my compost pile. So I know y'all do a good job of trying to not get it to the landfill if possible.
Yes, we have several volunteers who compost. And we'll take it home with them. They'll take a whole box of, moldy peppers or, rotten cucumbers. They'll take those home with them and in their own personal backyards.
Right. So Megan, I'm thinking too, now about how is post-pandemic? What are your hours and what kind of things are you providing for the community right now? What's your schedule kind of look like now?
So we are open to the public on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 2 to 4 p.m. We're still doing a drive-up line. We're honestly probably going to keep doing a drive-up line where people just receive their food outdoors until we're out of, I know Newton County, we're now orange. We're no longer red, but probably until we're green with COVID cases, we're going to stay outside. So people stay in their vehicles, we register them from their vehicles, and we put a pre-packed box of food directly into their vehicles. So folks can come Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 2 to 4. On Tuesdays, we do senior deliveries. We have several seniors in our community who are either homebound or don't have transportation, or maybe are on oxygen. It's just easier for us to deliver the food to them. We have about 150 seniors that we deliver to. So that's what we do on Tuesdays. And then one Saturday a month, we have the mobile food pantry. That date changes. So we do encourage people to go to our Facebook page or to call the church office if they want to find out when the next mobile food pantry is. We have expanded our hours. Pre-pandemic, we were only open Mondays and Wednesdays, and now we're open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and a couple Saturdays a month. And we're not going to change that. We're not going to decrease our hours back to pre-pandemic levels. There is just great need in the community still, even after the pandemic, after, we move on from the economic need of the pandemic. We know that there is still hunger in our community that we want to make sure we're addressing.
Yes, well, thank you so much. I think you have certainly made a big impact. And as I say, Megan, you are my hometown hero. I kept thinking I need to write an article to the paper saying that Megan is our hometown hero.
I'm just the puppet master pulling the strings. It's all the volunteers who are doing the work.
Yes, Megan, I know you did not go on vacation. I mean, during the pandemic, it was every day at the food pantry, and I just was so impressed. You gave up so much. I mean, I know people weren't going on vacation, but getting a day off or a little time off to yourself and your family probably would have helped during that time. And I so appreciate it. So thank you so much for being with us today. And
my pleasure. So glad that I could share with you.
Yes. Well, and thank you for all you're doing to help Newton County reduce its carbon footprint. We're sustaining people and doing it the right way. And so I think that is really something we want to say thank you for and appreciate all you've done.
Thanks, Theodosia. Appreciate it.
All righty. Thank you.